Welcome to the Produce Moms Podcast, where we believe there is a produce mom in all of us. I'm Lori Taylor, founder and CEO of the Produce Moms. For 10 years, I sold fresh produce to over 300 grocery stores in the U.S. And today, my team and I are fully focused on inspiring people to eat more fruits and vegetables. This show is just one of the ways that we hope to inspire you and your family to eat more produce and live a better life. If you like what you're hearing on the podcast, join our community of almost 40,000 in all 50 states and over 30 countries by visiting theproducemoms.com/subscribe. And be sure to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes. Thanks for being here. Enjoy today's show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Produce Moms Podcast. My name is Lori Taylor. I am so glad you're here. I am the founder of the Produce Moms. I'm the host of this show. And oh my goodness, today we have a wonderful episode. It's going to be so much fun. We are bringing what I time and time again say, it's truly one of the most perfect fruits in the world because it's affordable, it's delicious, and it's got this striking elegance. Like I'm convinced more painters have probably painted a pear than any other fruit in the world. So it's so much fun to welcome USA Pears to the show today. And do we have a great guest joining Neil Ferguson. Neil is with USA Pears. As many of you know who follow the Produce Moms, we work in a brand partnership with USA Pears. And if you don't know this, I'm going to go ahead and say it now. When I bought the Produce Moms from my former employers in 2015, the first and only client I had when I took that massive entrepreneurial leap was USA Pears. So to say that this brand partnership is meaningful to me is like understatement of all understatements, because I have a deep sense of personal and professional gratitude to USA Pears. And it's an organization that represents all of the pear growers in the Pacific Northwest. And I'll let Neil get into that, as I bring him onto the show here momentarily. And we've also invited a wonderful woman, Lisa, AKA the cocktail maven, Carrington. So Lisa Carrington is going to come on and talk to us about cocktail creation and the way pears can be such a great ingredient in mixology. So it's going to be a lot of fun today, guys. So, raise your martini glasses because it is time for the show. And Neil, welcome. Please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about USA Pears.
Thanks, Lori. It's good to be here. My name is Neil Ferguson. I'm the creative marketing manager at USA Pears. We are the brand of a nonprofit marketing organization, and we promote pears grown in the Northwest, Oregon, and Washington on behalf of all the pear growers there. So those two states grow about 87% of the commercial fresh pears in the U.S., and there's around 800 pear grower families, most of which are small family farms. So, there's 10 varieties of pears, and our season kicks off around the fall, and we're just always excited to talk all things pears.
Yes. And Neil, do you agree with me that it's like the most perfect fruit? It's got all these amazing characteristics. I know I left a biggie out though when I was giving my little love fest to pears to kick the show off. I left out nutrition, and it is such a nutrient dense food. So let's talk about pear nutrition, and feel free to, have your own little love fest with pears here when I swing the mic back to you. But I love pears. I think they look so elegant in the fruit bowl. I think they are just naturally such a, it's like a great fruit for everything from charcuterie boards to sandwiches. And hey, today we're going to learn more about cocktails with them, but please, let's talk about the nutrition because I left that out.
Yeah. Besides, of course, like you mentioned, being a beautiful fruit and being incredibly versatile as an ingredient, pears are an excellent source of fiber, and they have vitamin C, and there's only 100 calories per serving. And they also contain potassium and some iron and calcium, and they're sodium-free, fat-free, cholesterol-free. So lots of reasons to make it a healthy addition to your menu or as a snack.
I love them. Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more, Neil. They are like a super nutrient dense, almost if we're allowed to say that something's perfect, well, let's just say it's perfect. That's like my favorite pun to use in the produce world, but I love pears, and they really are. They have so many positive attributes. So let's talk about elevating simple meals. And then I'm going to bring Lisa on to talk about, cocktails with these. But let's talk about, we mentioned different ways that you can use them. I think probably most people are most familiar with pears, just simply eating them out of hand or slicing them. But let's talk about some of the wonderful ways that you and everyone at USA Pears is encouraging folks to consume pears.
Yeah, so I'll just preface it by saying, we have over 400 pear recipes on our website, and throughout any given season, of course, we'll be banging the drum on all the different pear recipes that you can make. But this season, I really wanted us to step back and just say, okay, instead of going through the whole process of a recipe, just adding pears to those everyday simple meals that you make all the time can really take them to the next level, elevate them. We like to say pears elevate everyday life. So whether that's sliced pears on a pizza, adding pears to your salad, maybe dicing up some pears for your morning oatmeal or throwing them in a smoothie or even in a quesadilla, all these things, it's just this simple addition of pears to these staples that you already make, and it really ups the flavor, the nutrition, and it can make for a whole different eating experience than same old.
Yes, I love it. And that pear on the pizza is brilliant. Makes such a difference. We've done several recipes with that. And Neil's right. USApears.org is like just the place to go to get inspired on ways to use pears. And what a great, easy concept. Just add a pear. Just elevate what you're doing by adding some pears. And with that, Lisa, let's bring you on, because I imagine you've got plenty of ideas on how we can elevate happy hour with pears. But in all seriousness, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit more about the Cocktail Maven.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here today. I'm Lisa Carrington. I'm much better known across the internet and in circles as the Cocktail Maven. That is my handle. I'm a Phoenix-based cocktail creator, influencer, and spirits educator. Believe it or not, that's actually a thing. And I grew up on a pear farm. My parents still raise pears today. I grew up in rural Washington State. USA Pears has been a part of my life since I was a very little girl. We're a small family farm, like many farmers in Washington State. And our pears go through a small growers cooperative and then are brought to the general public from there. So pears have always been a big part of my life. And growing up on a farm, you eat what's in season. I mean, we had everything. And you try to find about 100 different ways to use it. And so it feels a little bit like, Bubba Gump shrimp from Forrest Gump, where, you can cook it, you can eat it fresh, you can dry it, you can can it, you can preserve it. There's so many ways to use pears. And it's one of my favorite cocktail ingredients for all of the reasons of this love fest this morning. The flavor, the nutrition, as well as just it's extraordinarily beautiful to look at in a drink.
Amen to that. I agree. So I have to learn a little bit more about your background, because to me, it's fascinating. A cocktail creator and being the spirits educator. Tell us a little bit more about how you got started in this, especially going from the family farm to where you're at today.
Sure. I live in Phoenix today. So I moved to Phoenix a few years ago, and certainly living in a city makes it a little bit different than living in a town with, two churches and a dive bar. But it was a very natural evolution for me. If you're growing up on a farm and you're eating fresh all the time and you're eating what comes from the ground and you're constantly thinking about, my God, how do I use another zucchini? Or how do I come up with a way to continue to use this? Incorporating it naturally into your day, which was what Neil was talking about earlier, is so normal for people like us who come from farms. And over the years, cooking, of course, was my first outlet for this, but the cocktail revolution really started in about 2007. And in America, we had a bit of awakening. We were starting to think about what we're drinking and where those drinks come from. Distilleries popped up all over, and they're family distilleries, very like family farms. We thought about, where does the grain come from? And we started sourcing botanicals and fruit very carefully. And people wanted to know what was going into their cocktails. And we opted out in general from processed ingredients to fresh ingredients. And all of that, it was a perfect landscape for me to begin experimenting with cocktails as well. And if you fast forward to today, that self-education has grown into a huge passion. And I travel and I meet makers and I meet farmers and I meet people all over the world that are taking this moment as we think about drinking more mindfully than maybe we did 15 years ago, to paying attention to what we're putting into our bodies and really paying attention to the taste of those things and what's better than fresh produce to do that. So for me, it was a very natural evolution.
So fascinating. And I can totally connect the dots. You're right. It does feel like a natural next step, considering the culture of living on a farm. So let's talk about pears. I mean, you've mentioned that they're beautiful, they're delicious, they're a natural choice, an easy choice, a preferred choice when you think about what you're going to mix with your drinks. But tell us a little bit more about why pears and some of your favorite pear drinks.
Sure. Pears are so versatile because they have a mild flavor that plays well with a lot of ingredients. If you think of really strong flavors in fruits and vegetables, sometimes they really get narrowly cast. But this pear is this very utility player. It is so beautiful with ginger, elderflower, baking spices in the fall, caramel. There's just all of these sort of amazing flavors, and it's kind of hard to think of something that doesn't play well with pears. And so for me, if I'm heavily focused on sustainability, so I don't want to waste ingredients. I can use pears in so many ways. I can make a syrup from pears or puree from pears. I can add some spices to it, and it pairs beautifully with bourbon, with vodka, with tequila, with all these great flavors. And it comes off in the fall, as we're harvesting pears in the fall. So that's kind of like pumpkin spice season for everybody. But from my perspective, I think pears hands down, just they put pumpkin spice to shame. But you can put all those same spice flavors in with them, but then you can also use them in so many more things, and they don't overpower, they complement. When you're having a meal, you're making a dessert, you're making a cocktail, all of your flavors should complement. You shouldn't just taste one flavor. And pears can be this beautiful kind of, they just play so nicely with other things. So in general, that's why I love them. But from a why to use them or favorite cocktails, I love how sophisticated they are. You don't have to be super fancy to make something feel fancy. And pears are like my feel fancy thing. Like if I'm just too busy doing everything else, like, slice a gorgeous pear, like a Bosque pear, slice it down the middle, put a little sugar on top, torch it with a torch, takes about 15 seconds. And you have this amazing garnish that can go in a cocktail. You can take a pear puree or a pear syrup and add it to champagne with a slice of pear as your garnish. I mean, hands down, that's 100 times prettier than a mimosa. Flavors better than a mimosa. And you serve something that makes somebody feel special. And for me, cocktails are like my love language. I like to make people feel special when I make things, but I don't have any more time than anyone else. So for me, pears allow me to do that.
That's wonderful. And I'm trying that mimosa idea. What do you call that, Lisa? What's the name of that drink? Just a pear mimosa, or what do you call it?
Yeah, if I add spice in it, I'll sometimes just call it like an autumn mimosa or a fall mimosa, something with the season. But a lot of times if I'm serving it, sometimes I'll just throw someone's name in there. I'll be like, this is Julie's mimosa. And then they'll think they're special. So, you call it whatever you want with whoever you're serving it to.
That's great. I love that. Great tip too, on how to be that special host. I love it. All right. So there's been some great tips here. And Lisa, I have to also call out, you're right. Like, as you were talking about the different spirits that pear, the flavor of pear can be part of, like, you're right. It can go from whiskey to vodka, tequila. I mean, work with mezcal. I mean, there's so many options. It really is like the Bubba Gump shrimp comments. But I love that. Well, let's, this has been a great show. I've enjoyed getting both of you on and sharing your thoughts. But Neil, I'd love to get some closing remarks from you, what you want people to really think about when they close out today's episode and remember from this podcast.
Yeah, of course. And I think Lisa covered everything, and it really points back to that idea of pears elevating everyday life. Lisa touched on adding pears to all these different types of cocktails, and it puts a new spin on it. It makes you kind of think about those flavors in a different way, and it can replace some traditional flavors that might be, getting a little boring. And then, of course, I love the versatility of pears in cocktails. So you could make a pear puree or a pear simple syrup and save it and use it for a while. Or you could just have a really fantastic garnish and just wow your guests after, of course, you present it with their name on it. So, yeah, I think there's so many ways to use pears in cocktails.
Undoubtedly. I've definitely learned that today. And, Lisa, thank you so much for being our guest. And please tell everyone in your closing remarks a little bit more about how they can connect with you and follow along with what you're doing at the Cocktail Maven. And for sure, any closing thoughts and key takeaways that you want our audience to have?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me here today. I think for me, sustainability is a key, a core to me. So think about that fruit that's overripe and find a way to use it in a cocktail. Cocktail is a perfect way to ensure that you're not wasting fruit. When you're thinking about produce and supporting family farms, don't forget what goes in your glass. Your glass is another avenue to having that fruit every day. And I think key to my ethos is we're all drinking less today. So let's do it mindfully and do it in a way that makes it special. And pears are a perfect way to do that. I would love to connect with people on social media. I am cocktail_maven, both on Instagram and Twitter. And my website is cocktailmavenaz.com.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Produce Moms Podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a featured guest, just send an email to Lori@theproducemoms.com. We know there is a produce mom in you because there's a produce mom in all of us. Join our community on Facebook and all social platforms. Help us change the way America eats. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.